Hey everybody. Hi everybody. Welcome to the Kirk and Bill show. My name is Kirk Anderson and I am hosting today. Bill's taking the day off. We're going to be talking tech with a special guest. And for those of you who are interested in bringing your video game to a higher level, I want to invite you to take a listen. We have a special guest, Pastor Chris Folkestad from the Alliance Church of the Valley, who's going to be specifically talking about bringing his church's tech up to do live streaming. And so we're excited to get a lot of information and talk about some of the tools and some of the processes that are needed to bring churches online in this period of time with the global pandemic. And before we get started on the show, I want to just take a moment to introduce myself. I'm a business person here in St. Croix Falls, Wisconsin. I own a tech business that specializes in web design and social media marketing, as well as audio and visual graphics. One of the things that I'm excited to bring to you is information that can help you to bring your business to the next level. And so today we're going to be talking specifically about video. Chris, I want to thank you for being part of our show. Give us a little bit of a background on who you are and what you're specifically doing at your church.
Sure. My name's Chris, and my family and I have been part of the St. Croix Valley for almost 13 years now. And most of my time here at Alliance Church of the Valley has been the student ministry pastor. But in the past year, I've transitioned to be into a new position of co-lead pastor. And so in that, I never thought that all of my experience of hanging out on Facebook and Instagram as a youth pastor would be coming so handy in being a co-lead pastor. But we've really quickly tried to be able to adjust to being an online church that no longer meets in a physical location because of COVID-19. And so it's been an interesting ride as we've figured out how to do that.
Well, I appreciate that you are willing to come on and talk about that transition. This started a little less than a month ago. We're going into our fourth Sunday now, right? Doing the virtual church. And tell me a little bit, just for people who are maybe wondering, how that's affected the philosophy of ministry, where generally you're connected with people, you see people on a weekly basis, and now you're producing more of a television show type of a church. What's the vibe like with within the church, and how is that affecting the staff on the lack of socialness?
Sure. Yeah, we really, what we do is people. Like we hang out with people, we talk with people, we work with people. And a lot of what we're about is connecting people with one another and connecting together as a larger group or as a church. And so to move from an organization that is highly connected, highly people driven, to then be an online presence instead is quite a jump that it takes. For instance, on Sunday mornings, on a regular Sunday, when we're not online, it takes 40 to 50 volunteers to run our entire ministry, from greeters to people in the kitchen to children's ministry to all those things. And so we're used to having lots of people helping out, doing everything, everyone doing their part. And all of a sudden there was no people, right? Because everyone was at home. And so the staff and a few of the leaders, all of a sudden we're like trying to scramble to figure out how do we do what all these people used to do, but do it with a relatively small group of people, but also not really having the knowledge to be able to do it. Previous to 4 weeks ago, we didn't even video our services. We only audio recorded them. And then all of a sudden we're producing and putting out video on a weekly basis now, which is a big jump and transition for us.
Well, and that's kind of what I wanted to talk about today, was a little bit more along the lines of the technical aspects for people that are at churches that are maybe starting to think maybe we better get on board with this. They maybe don't feel like they're qualified to run an online church ministry, but they're maybe second guessing that now that we're going into week 4 and we don't know when the end game will be for this. So I wanted to touch a little bit on what kind of equipment is necessary and maybe some different levels of streaming. I know you do streaming in a recorded fashion that is pre-produced and then goes live on Sunday morning at 10 o'clock. But then you also do actual live streaming for youth ministry and things where you're interacting with kids and people online. So what are the different levels or equipment needed for those two different types of things?
Sure. So for our live stuff that we do, whether it's youth group every Wednesday night at 7 o'clock, we stream live, and we have all of it's done on iPhones, and we stream to Facebook. And then we have another iPhone that's streaming to Instagram, and we do that because we can get a lot of interaction back and forth with those people who are watching. We also do Thursday night family night at my house for our church. And so from our living room, my wife and I run like 25, 30 minutes of games for people to play in their homes. Again, just run on a iPhone with a tripod and no music. With both of those, we use some of our presentation software to have screens behind us to do some interactions and have graphics up on the screen. We don't even use microphones. We just use the microphones that are on the iPhone. And so that is really the most basic you can get with live streaming, but it works out pretty well. We do have some extra lighting that helps with, especially with our Wednesday night, because of the things we're doing, we need extra lighting. And so we've purchased some additional camera lighting, but that's pretty stripped down, pretty basic way to do it. On Sunday mornings, because there's a lot more involved in our Sunday mornings, we have chosen to pre-record them and then edit them and then premiere them live on Facebook and YouTube at 10 o'clock on Sunday mornings, as well as streaming on our website. So with that, we have a Canon G30. So this camera here is what we use for all of our recording of our services. I do have a Audio Technica receiver on top of it. So for the message portion, myself or Pastor Jeff wears a lapel mic and has the mic straight into the camera. For our worship team, during our worship time, it's a little bit more complicated because there's instruments involved and extra voices involved. And so we found the best way that we can do that is to have ambient mics in the room and record the room. But it takes a lot of time for that. But we've had to change our stage. We've added extra lighting again on the stage for lighting it for video. So it's been quite a transition with that. And then all of that, I take that and we edit it on Final Cut Pro on Macs. So we have a couple different Mac computers that we use where we do all the post-production, adding in all of the elements together, from announcements to the worship time to the message, making that all into one large file, and then pre-uploading that to Facebook and YouTube, and then premiering them at 10 o'clock on Sunday mornings.
So some of the important components are lighting and sound. And doing interviews on Skype is a challenge because, Skype is all based on the internet and speed and quality. So video really requires good lighting and good sound, and then a fairly decent camera. Are the iPhones generally okay as far as quality?
Yeah.
Are you
Yeah,
happy with that?
They are. We're running it's an iPhone 11 that we're using mostly, and so the camera and like the night, like the in the dark, works really, really well.
Right.
And that has that is definitely the better one of the two. And the other one I think is an 8 or a 7. And but both of them with the lighting that we use, both of them work pretty well.
And there's a little bit of a learning curve to that. I know from streaming, if you start the stream with it in the wrong direction and then turn it after you hit record, you start seeing things sideways, and so there's some challenges to that. So it's best to test those things out before you go live and make sure that you are comfortable with them. I don't know if you've experienced any of that, but I know for my recordings that there's been a couple times I've had to stop and start again, and that's been a little bit of a challenge.
Yeah, we've failed way more than we've been successful at video stuff, especially the first week. The first like 4 videos that I put out, 2/3 of the people heard them just the way that I prepared them, and 1/3 of the people only heard like this grumbled up music behind because of a setting that was on our camera that was not playing nice with Facebook and YouTube, and so
right.
or at least with some devices, and so all those things, we put out all these videos we were so happy with, and half the people, or a third of the people, couldn't even hear them, and so
sure.
It's been a lot of trial and error.
Yeah,
figuring out what
I assume you're
and
talking about stereo in and
Yeah.
your 2 channels, and music was on one and your voice was on the other, and they only heard
Yeah.
one. Yeah, that's frustrating. So
Yeah.
upping your game, iPhone would be kind of the lower level, and then there's a webcam that you can use. But honestly, if you're streaming with a church, you're probably in a bigger room, and a webcam is attached to your computer, or it might be something that's stuck on the top of your computer with a clamp or something like that. So that's probably not going to be very applicable for churches. I use a webcam for this production, and the quality on there is actually very good. It's a Logitech 922, which is a 1080p camera, and it works really well. And you could use it for live streaming. You could put it on a tripod. It has a mount for that. But the problem with it is it doesn't have any zoom. It doesn't have any autofocus, any of that kind of stuff. So your next step would be to go to like a Vixia, or I'm not sure if that's the brand you had. You showed a Canon, which is a pretty high-end, basically camcorder. And do you know what something like that runs, like budget-wise?
I don't remember. We've had this particular camera for several years now, so I believe it was. I don't remember for sure. I think it was $600 or $700, $600. I think.
Okay, and that's like a pretty high-end camera with the wireless mic and the audio inputs and stuff. So you can certainly do that. If you do go to a camera like that, you want to make sure that it does have a way to plug an audio into it, or that the audio works well plugged into the computer, so that you don't have your mouth going and the audio out of sync. It's best if you can do it all through the device. And then some of the other cameras that stream really well, just a DSLR camera. This is a Rebel T6i, and it has a flip out screen so you can see yourself if you're doing video, but this will connect to the computer just like a webcam, but it's not native to that. It doesn't come with a cord that plugs right into the computer. So you need something that will take the video stream and get it to your computer and translate it into something the computer can use. And so what I use is the Ultra Studio Mini Recorder from Blackmagic. And that takes the, let's see if I can get it in front of the camera, the HDMI or the SDI, and I'll talk a little bit about that, and it turns it into something that plugs right in the computer through the Thunderbolt. And so I can plug the Thunderbolt right into my Apple iMac and an HDMI to one of my cameras, and it will stream it just like a webcam. It basically turns it into a webcam. So the the HDMI is for shorter runs. You can have no more than 50 feet of HDMI before it breaks down. And the SDI is for longer runs. This would be more of a professional TV studios. If you're, at the Super Bowl and you have to run a camera 300 feet down to the field with a wire, you're going to use this wire, which is basically like a coax cable. And then it will turn it from that into something that the computer can use. So these are relatively inexpensive. They're about $150, I think. But right now they are sold out very quickly, and everybody's buying this stuff. In fact, if you go to Amazon and you look at the Logitech 922, it used to be, when I bought mine, I think it was $75. Right now they're selling for over $300 because of price gouging, I guess. So the next step up would be if you wanted to do something like Chris's. I have one similar to that. Mine's bigger. Bigger doesn't mean better, but this is more of a prosumer camera, and that can plug into the mini recorder as well. And the nice thing about those camcorders versus like a DSLR is you can do zooming really easy, autofocus. A lot of times you can do some more fancy stuff like a TV camera than if you were using a webcam or an iPhone. And so you don't have to move closer to get a more tight shot. You can actually just zoom in. So that kind of covers some of the camera type things. You can go from what's in your pocket all the way to several thousands of dollars, but you don't have to spend that, I guess, is the big thing. So then the other thing that we would look at for equipment, and Chris, you can tell me, lighting. You mentioned lighting a couple different times. What kind of lights are you using to kind of light your space?
I don't remember what the specs on them or the name of them are. They're large light boxes that are on tripods that have a diffuser sheet over top.
Okay.
The front just cast a nice hue, but doesn't necessarily light up the background. It just lights up the people. You got to be fairly close to them, and so
right.
It helps. It's been helpful for us.
So with those, I mean, like I use ring lights, which are real popular, and they kind of fill your face and hide the blemishes and things like that, the wrinkles. But they can be harsh too. Generally, they have colors that you can turn it more bluish or more yellowish, depending upon what your light's above you, or if you have outside lights coming in. Most cameras will have a white balance, which is important to really pay attention to when you're doing your if you can. Not all cameras do. Some of them, like the iPhone, it's just pretty much automatic. But you want to be able to control the color so that you don't look super orange or super blue or green. If you happen to be in a dark environment, it can really mess with the color of your room. So that can be a bit of a challenge. Tripods, if you're going to stream live, you don't want to be holding your camera like you're vlogging, because your arm will get tired. So whether or not you use a tripod, Chris's famous tripod is a bunch of pens in a cup that he just kind of sticks his phone in, and that works great as long as you don't touch it. But you can get tripods that have phone accessories that you can put your phone into, all the way to the DSL mounts that you slide into a tripod, like a Manfrotto, something like that, and hold it steady, because the steadier the camera is, the better quality the video is going to be. So those are some important things too. And then once you get it to your computer, it really doesn't matter if you use a Mac or a PC. There's different programs that work for both of those. I have a Mac, and I use something called Ecamm, which is very intuitive and easy to use, but it is for Mac only. There's OBS, which is very similar to Ecamm, but OBS is open source, and so there's a bit more like bells and whistles that you have to figure out, and it's not quite as simple, but it can do the exact same thing. There's vMix, which you can look up online. That one is a great PC-based one. And then some people use programs like Zoom, which I use for business type things, for meetings, for Rotary Club. And I know Chris uses it for different meetings and things like that. But with a $40 add-on to one of their plans, you can actually stream that live on Facebook. And it doesn't matter if you have 1 or 2 people or 100 people, you can stream that live to Facebook so that everybody tuning in to your Facebook page can watch as well. And so that's a powerful thing as well. So I think the lowest price Zoom plan is like $15, and then you have to add that $40 on there. So where do you tend to put your video? Where are you, the congregation hanging out?
Sure. So we are posting our videos on Facebook and on YouTube. We on Sunday morning, a majority of our people are watching on Facebook, and we like that because we can interact in the comment section during the premiere, and we can talk back and forth, especially at the beginning during the announcements. And we usually have some fun trivia to play at the beginning, and so there's a lot of interaction that way. But not everyone has Facebook accounts, and so I know that Facebook has opened up. This week has opened up so that anyone can watch the videos, even if they don't have an account. But we also have a YouTube channel on YouTube where we also store the video and premiere it there at the same time. And we have about 20% of our people watched on Sunday watched it on YouTube. And there is still a spot to do some interaction, but you can watch there. And then we use those because they're popular. A lot of people are used to using both of those platforms. And then we can also embed them into our website. So if you go to stcurryalliance.com on Sunday morning, right on the front page is our service. And so there's a countdown to the service, and then the service starts, and it's on the website there. And then when we're done, it's just automatically available, so people can go back and watch it. And so we store it on Facebook and YouTube so that we can also embed it onto our website.
Okay. So when you talk about, you said premiere, that's referring to going back to your pre-recorded and you edit everything together to one file. And then a premiere, for those who may not be familiar with that, is when you take that video and you upload it to YouTube, but you don't publish it right away. You pick a time and say, I want this published at 10 o'clock on Sunday morning, and you get to fill out some of the details like a title and a description, and then you just wait until 10 and it will automatically publish itself as though it's a live video. Even though it's not live, it comes across as a live play. Does that sum it up pretty well?
Yeah, so we do there's 2 different ways that we do, or 3 different ways we do video on Facebook. One is we do it live. So like youth group tonight, family night, those will be live videos. Then there's the scheduled posts. So every day we have a little different devotional that one of our staff members has made that posts at 7 o'clock every morning on Facebook and YouTube. And they're just available there. They don't automatically play like a live video, but they're available starting at 7 a.m. And then finally we have the premiere, which we do for our services so that it'll go live at 10 o'clock and it plays. And if you log on at 10 or any time after 10 during the video, you have to watch along with it. One of the things we like about that is that all of our church people are watching together, and so they're experiencing the same thing together, not just pushing play anytime during the day. Mm-hmm. But there's a sense of unity even in the midst of being separate. So that's why we have chosen the premiere.
The other thing too with that is that the comments then are coming across in a live format as well, so everybody's seeing comments that are associated with a certain period of time within the video while they're watching. And so that's kind of, it adds a little bit of more of a fellowship aspect to it.
For sure.
Do you ever use the watch party option?
So, I have before. on other videos, but some of our people in our church will actually host watch parties on Sunday morning. And so they're gathering with some of their friends, and watching that same video still live with us, but their comments are all into their watch party. So every Sunday morning, there's probably 4 or 5 different watch parties going on of that service at 10 o'clock.
So watch party, if I wanted to go to your site right now and say, hey, there was a great message that I want everybody to be able to see, I could hit create a watch party, and it would show up as a live video, and individuals who happen to log into my watch party, their comments would be different than the ones that are on that video, and I could interact with them as though we're watching it live. So it's kind of a neat feature for like replays and things like that. What about the other platforms? Do you feel like there's any benefit to putting them out on any other platforms, or is YouTube and Facebook kind of the two that you've determined to be perfect for church or good for church?
Yeah, for us, those are the ones that we're using just because we feel like those are the ones that people are most used to and familiar with using. I know some churches will post their videos instead to Vimeo, which is a nice service as well. But those are the ones that we've chosen. And
Yeah. So your first week when you went live, it was just the sermon, and there was no music, which a lot of people go to church and they really enjoy the worship portion of it. So that was a bit of a challenge. It's a challenge not only because it's hard to get people together in a pandemic to play together, but there's also copyright issues with songs. And so tell me a little bit about what you did and what you would recommend for, that copyright issue to be able to actually put those songs online.
Yeah, there's a ton of copyright issues you have to be thinking about when you're streaming and putting things online, not even just things that are heard, but also things that are seen. Some of the graphics also need streaming license. And so the first week we just did just a message because we didn't have any extra license to be able to play any other music. And so most churches subscribe to CCLI, which is a licensing agency that you buy a license through them that covers all of the music that you're performing in your church. And you pay based on the size of your congregation, a yearly fee to be able to do that. It gives you the right to be able to perform the songs as well as to post the lyrics either on a screen or in a worship folder or a hymnal. It gives you the right to do those things. And that's what we had leading up to this. And so we needed to add on to our license, a streaming license, onto our CCLI license that gave us the ability to perform our own music or perform music that was not our own. It still does not give you permission to like push play on a CD and play music in the background. But if your musicians are playing the music, then you have the right to be able to stream.
Cool.
And so we had to do that. We bought that license as well as for our bumper videos, our graphics, our countdown that we do before the service. All of those things, we had to make sure that our licenses covered streaming.
So that would be something if a church wants to do that legally, they would have to contact whoever provides that license inside and just up the licensing. And most churches should already have that in place for just singing on a regular Sunday.
Yeah, they would just have to increase it to streaming as well.
Okay.
And if you don't, YouTube will tell you.
Yeah, YouTube and Facebook will block your videos. They'll mute them, or they'll give you strikes and actually close down your account. So it's a pretty big deal. Artists that create things should get paid for what they create, and they should benefit from the hard work that they put into it. And so there's protections in place for that. So you eventually are going to move the church toward, assuming that this pandemic ends, we're going to move towards online church with a streaming versus a pre-recorded church service where, you or Pastor Jeff or whoever is actually sitting alone preaching to the camera, and then we're putting it out onto the screens of people's houses. What changes will you need to do to make that more seamless? Because right now I'm assuming you're working really hard to do all these things to make this happen every Sunday. It's probably a lot more work for you to create these videos than it is to just have church with all the volunteers, right?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Like our first week, I left the church at 5 a.m. After finishing the video, and church started at 10,
Yeah.
and, but so we were already in the process of putting in a system to be able to stream our services live. But now that got bumped up quickly, and our new system we have will have mounted cameras. That'll be multiple cameras within our sanctuary that are all controlled in the sound booth by a joystick and by a computer. But basically, we'll take everything that we're doing and what we normally do on a Sunday morning, as it's happening, it'll be streaming live to like 4 different platforms online. And at the end of the service, it's done. Like it's all been done. The lower thirds have already been put on. Music has been edited because it's all happening live as we go. And so the work will be drastically less when we're streaming. Plus, it'll be a different feel because we're streaming a room that's full of people.
Right.
And so it's difficult. The first week when we stood up in front, we're giving the announcements, Jeff and I, we're looking back at 400 empty seats. It's weird to be animated or excited or talking, and feel natural.
Yeah.
When people are going to be watching that, in their living rooms.
So you could potentially put some sound effects in, like clapping and to make it a little bit more interesting. Yeah, no, it's difficult. I do all my videos in my office. I have it set up with even a green screen, and it takes a certain amount of acting to make it feel legitimate. And you have to really think of the camera as a person. So even now, as I'm looking at this stream, I'm looking at your face because that's the natural way to do it, which my eyes will probably be a little bit off of the camera, which is up there. I should be looking at the camera and talking directly to the people.
It's hard not to look at my face, though.
It's very hard. Yeah. So that's something that we overcome. One of the things that we miss as a family. So I have a family of 7. There's 5 kids and my wife and I, and we go downstairs. We are, still in our pajamas, a lot of us, and we turn on Facebook and we do church, which is fantastic. But what we're missing is the people. We're missing the fellowship, our friends. We're missing all of that. And so I think you have a really tough job, which is to not manufacture a fake experience, through that like fake enthusiasm and things like that, but to really encourage relationships. And on a Sunday morning, that's been really challenging, but throughout the week, there's been a constant stream of connectedness that you're putting out through staff and through youth group and through all these different things, which it takes time, it takes a lot of effort, but it's the one way that we can stay connected. Zoom is a platform that I use, you use for meetings. How could you use that to connect kids face to face or adults face to face? How will you utilize that in the future?
Well, our student ministries pastor Charles and I were just talking about that today. Wednesday night, they're actually moving from doing Facebook and Instagram for 1 week and doing just Zoom with students, and they're doing a kind of a special service, and they're going to do it on Zoom so they can connect and see each other and be a part of it. But so that's one way. And if you can, with a paid version, you can have up to 100 people, and so that is one way you can do it. I definitely would safeguard and say you need to have some precautions in place when you're doing that, because you don't want the room ID or the password to get out to the wrong people. You want to make sure that the people you want in the room are in the room. So you definitely need to be careful with that. But it's a great opportunity for that. So youth group will be great on Wednesday night because they'll be able to interact together. They'll be able to see one another. Our women's Bible study is going to be Bible studies are going to begin doing Zoom calls. Our elder meetings are done on Zoom. Allows you to do those connection points, and so those are great ways to be able to use Zoom to be able to connect, and even just being able to have. Pastor Charles is working on just having some office hours where he's available to video chat with students, just because we're missing that face-to-face contact. And I know you don't want to hear this in a tech podcast, but one of the things that we're finding is that's getting the biggest response from people is we're sending letters in the mail. And so, and like some kids have never gotten letters before, practically. I mean, they have, but like hardly ever. Right. And so that's one way that we're connecting that is completely untechnical.
Well, and I think it's important that we hit all those different touch points for adults and for kids. I know my mom and my dad, we did the first FaceTime video and sat down with the kids on the couch, and it was a little bit of chaos with all the kids we have, but that was the only way that we can really connect with our older parents who are kind of quarantined themselves too. So it's utilizing those different things. I'm sure my mom would prefer a handwritten note or something like that, but she really appreciates being able to see her grandkids, and I appreciate being able to see that they're doing okay. So I think that's important. One of the last things, go ahead.
We found that we have a portion of our congregation is older, and they're an important part of our congregation. And we've been really trying to reach out to them to make sure, do they have connections to internet? Because if they don't, a lot of what we're doing is online. And so there are a few people who don't have connections to internet, don't have the ability to get on YouTube or Facebook. And so we've been delivering DVDs to them to help them be able to still see the services.
Oh, wow.
And, finding other ways to be able to connect them. But I found that a large majority, or a lot of even our elderly, are connected through email, Facebook and YouTube. And it took a little bit of time helping them learn how to use some of those platforms because they hadn't really been using them before, but they've been connecting as well. But it is important to think about your whole audience to make sure that there aren't people that are just not being communicated with because they don't have access to internet or devices.
Yeah, that's really interesting I'm glad you didn't say that you were delivering VHSs or something like that. But,
no.
We still have a VHS recorder. I think you made fun of us one time when you saw a picture of that in a photo I took at my house. But, it's so important to connect with all those different people. And, it spans the ages. I know someone who's in their 30s who doesn't have Facebook and refuses to get it. And I know people like my dad who's 80 who have a smartphone, more devices than I have to stay connected, and is on Facebook. So it really spans, but it's important to, keep that connection and that whole process open, because those people are probably lonely, just like many of us are lonely. We miss our friends. We miss going and hanging out. We miss getting together at restaurants and having lunch. And, this has been a long 4 weeks, and it's only the 2nd of April. We're closed down until April 30th. So hopefully we'll get through this rather quickly. Last thing I wanted to talk about is probably something that is, it's always an uncomfortable sermon topic, but I think most churches are probably a little nervous about this right now. And so you can maybe guess what I'm going to talk about, but it's giving. And because we are no longer passing the plate, so to speak, in the service, there is a need for still paying the bills. There's still overhead, there's still staff, there's still, mortgages or whatever it may be at a lot of churches. So what is the digital way to give online, and how have you found success with that at your church?
Sure. Well, thankfully, we've had some online giving options that have already been in place for some time now at our church. But They have been somewhat utilized, but not overly utilized up until this point. And so being able to have a platform in place was really helpful for us because we had something very easily to push people towards. And so in our communication, we've always said, there's multiple ways you can give. You can still give online. You can drop it off, and some people prefer to still come and drop off their check of their tithe or offering. You can mail it in, and some people have mailed it in. It's been great. A lot of them have mailed it in with cards and encouragement that they've shared with us. But then the third way, and the way that we really are pushing people towards, is through online giving. And so that's through our website, through our church management software that we have called Breeze. And right on our website, there's an easy give online. You click there, you can put in your routing number for your checking accounts, and then you can do a one-time giving. You can do reoccurring giving. My family and I just have a reoccurring giving that's set up that continues to give, and you can decide where it goes, to what different accounts it might go to. And so really anything you could have done in person, you could do right online, and you can set it up. And so I don't remember the exact numbers, but before 4 weeks ago, before we went on all online, we had about 20 to 25% of our Sunday morning giving would come in online versus 80 or so percent that would come in person. This past Sunday, I believe we had like 75% of our giving came in online versus in person. We have seen that over the last 3 weeks, our giving has been lower than what our average had been beforehand. But each week it's getting a little bit larger as people realize, okay, we're in this for a while now, and so they're reestablishing some different patterns. And so, it's something that we want to make available, whatever way is easiest, and be able to help people to continue to be able to do that.
Nice.
Because we do still have bills that we need to be paid, but even more so, just the we believe just in the practice of tithing and the importance of it. And so we want to be able to help people to be able to continue to do that.
Yeah. Well, some of the, again, going from easy to more robust would be that churches may want to look at. I would not recommend like a PayPal, although you could do that and people could just send you money. The tracking on that's going to be a lot more complicated and difficult. So I would recommend maybe stepping it up. You're already paying a fee with PayPal. But some of the ones other than, you said it was Breeze?
Breeze, yeah.
Breeze. So you could look that up. Tithely is one that I looked up. Easy Tithe. And then there's something called Rebel Gift. And those are some recommended ones that I had heard about. And so if your church is looking at ways to encourage people to give online and taking it out of the offering plate, those are some options that you could look into. Some of the benefits to using those specific tithing type of programs is that they usually will synchronize with some sort of a reporting software. They will help you with the tax reports, and even filter into your budgeting if it's a special gift or if it's set aside for something specific. So you can really make it easier on yourself or your staff if you utilize some of those specific tithing type programs, and there's several of them. So that kind of brings it to a close. I wanted to do a pretty in-depth tech overview and talk about cameras and equipment and software, and I think we did a good job there. Chris, as a pastor, something that I think you have a heart for is other ministries in the area. I know that you have a great relationship with a lot of the pastors in the area, so I just want to give you an opportunity just to maybe put a little word of encouragement out there to pastors who may be feeling overwhelmed or struggling, and just let them know what you've gone through and that it's yeah.
I think that for me, I've learned a lot in over these last 4 weeks, and I've tried a lot of stuff, and I've sat in front of a camera like this a lot over the last 4 weeks, more than I have the rest of my life. And I've realized that as pastors, we want to try hard, right? We want to connect with our people. We want to help them. We want to give them that word of advice. We want to, talk to them about fear and all these things that they might be feeling. And one of the things that I've realized is that people are saturated with screen time now. They're using screen time more than they ever have before, and they're getting so much content is coming in on their screens. And so, what I've realized is that connecting is more important than content. And so, finding ways to connect with your people, whether if that's through video, awesome. If it's through a phone call, awesome. But connecting over content is always more important. So, that would be my encouragement to other pastors, is to find ways to connect with your people. Yes, your content is important, but connecting is even more important.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate your time, and want to just put it out to any church that might be watching this, or any business that might be watching this, because a lot of this will transfer over in some ways to businesses that are trying to connect with their clients and their individual customers in a real way, or their team members. You might have team members that are working from home and you want to stay connected. Part of the reason that Bill and I are doing this show is to talk about business and technology to make it better and easier for people to stay connected. And so if you have any questions or any comments, any needs as far as help getting this set up, don't hesitate to reach out to me and let me know. And I would love to connect with you and hopefully be able to help you take your church to that next level, bring it from the pews to online. And if that's for the next 4 weeks or for the remainder of your ministry, I think that that's kind of the trend of where things are going. And even now, as I look from a business perspective, as I've interviewed people and have talked to different people, one of the themes that I've heard is, now that we've done this and I've experienced that I don't have to drive an hour to go meet with somebody, I might just keep doing the Zoom thing because it's really convenient. And that could be good or bad, depending upon how you look at it, because you're not in a relationship with them. But that's just the reality of where people are at now. We might start seeing more and more of that online versus in person. And so it's just the reality. So let me know if there's something that I can help you with, and we'll certainly reach back to that. But thank you, Chris, for all your time and expertise in this and sharing all the things that you've learned, and being able to encourage the churches in the area and maybe all over the country. As our show grows, we might be able to encourage other people, and it's just been great to be a part of what you're doing at the Alliance Church for so many years, and I look forward to continuing to see it grow. So thanks a lot for your time.
Yeah, thank you.